I'm going to show you how to make a homemade watercolour card. So this is a bit of an odd, this is a little bit of a remnant I had in my drawer, my little plan chest, and I'm thinking I'd like to make a card out of this as well, so it's quite nice to have. You can fold that in half, just make sure both sides marry up like that. I'm going to use the scissors again, just to press that down like that. Now what you could do with these is you could actually just paint directly onto this. You could sort of mask out around the edge with some masking tape or washi tape, and then paint your picture and then peel off afterwards, and that makes quite nice little cards. And I'll be demonstrating that later in this tutorial. So I'm going to trim this card now, the watercolour card, to get two cards, one a little bit more square, one a little bit more rectangle. So this is the card that I'm going to make into a little autumnal card. So I'm going to prepare the watercolour card. What you can do is just get some washi tape, and this is about 1/2 centimetre wide, but there's lots of different widths washi tape, and I buy mine from amazon.co.uk, and I buy the washi tape that has the best reviews, so and also the patterns that I like, you know, so just have a little check out the reviews and see which one you like. This is quite a pretty pattern. And what I quite like about washi tape is it doesn't tend to tear the paper, and it's nice to look at. So there's two good reasons to use it. And it doesn't tend to bleed through underneath either. So there we are. So you can actually sort of take the size, stick it down, paint your picture on there, and then peel that off, and you've got a lovely white border afterwards. So I'm going to demonstrate that for you now. For a full list of the materials I'm using and the colours, please see the description below. I'm actually going to paint this autumnal scene from my imagination, so I hope you enjoy it and that it inspires you to have a go at painting an autumn scene, but also creating a card, a watercolour card from your imagination. So there's no drawing involved here. I'm using a wax crayon here just to sort of rub onto the watercolour paper. And what the wax will do, it will resist the watercolour paint. So that's where I'm going to get the structure from. So I'm actually sort of drawing in some tree trunks, reflections, etc. So that'll be lighter when I actually paint the watercolour over the top. I'm using some cadmium yellow here with a little bit of burnt sienna and some quinacridone gold. So it's lovely warm colours here. I'm starting off painting light to dark, so I'm going to sort of paint a little bit of light here through the centre using my size 8 round brush, painting wet on dry. And as you can see there, how the wax has resisted the watercolour. This is a little bit of burnt sienna. I'm painting this touch of wet in wet, but also a little bit of wet in dry around this area to the left here. So already I've got a lovely scene. I've set the scene. So I'm rinsing my brush there. I'm just going to get a little bit of teal here, but you can use some cerulean with a touch of yellow to make a light green. And now I am spattering wet into wet with my size 8 brush. I thought it'd be nice just to show a few green leaves as they turn into the autumn colours. And I'm just getting a little bit of cadmium red now, and I'm spattering that as well. I'm holding the brush firmly in my hand and tapping in the middle of the brush there. It sometimes takes a bit of practice, and do make sure that you've masked out and covered valuables around your painting area. So as you can see, this is fun to do, and it's quite abstract as well, very loose. This is a little bit of burnt sienna, and I'm spattering that as well. And what you get with spattering is lots of textures and details, and you don't actually even have to touch the paper with your brush. This is a little bit of magenta with a touch of permanent rose. You can use alizarin crimson. So I'm really getting all the colours, those lovely warm autumnal colours here, and spattering, using a little bit of Prussian blue with the pink there, the magenta, and spattering some darks here and there as well. It's so much fun spattering. It really is. You can create some wonderful effects. So I'm using my plastic card, and that's an old bank card cut up. You can use an old store card, and I'm just sort of scratching in. It's a permanent thing, this, because you're actually scratching the surface of the paper and the paint runs into that scratch to create some lovely darks. It's a nice way of getting thin lines, lovely for the tree trunks and branches. So I'm using some pink Himalayan rock salt. You can just use ordinary table salt, and I'm sprinkling it onto the damp surface and allow that to dry naturally. I'm mixing up here a little bit of magenta and the Prussian blue, and I'm painting this damp into damp with my size 6 brush just on the sort of just above the water's edge. I'm actually going to do this below the water's edge later, but it's just to create some dark bushes there and to give the painting, this semi-abstract painting, a little bit of structure. So I'm just painting a little bit more dark here, damp into damp, sort of varying the sort of heights of the bushes as well. And I'm using a twig sharpened with a pencil sharpener. It's quite nice to use, and I'm dipping it into the sort of pans there and using that sort of paint there with a little bit of water as well mixed, and just drawing very thin lines. You can do this with the plastic card as well, but it's just quite a nice way of sort of painting without using your brush, getting these thin lines. So I'm painting lots of branches and tree trunks here, and I'm also sort of painting in the reflections, or kind of drawing them really with the twig, making sure when I sort of paint in the reflections, I paint more of a wriggly line to look like it's the reflection in the water there. So I'm using the plastic card again because the paint has dried off, it's damp now, and I can lift off with the card to create some lighter marks, so it's quite nice. If your paint runs back in on itself, wait a little bit longer and have another go, but it's a really nice way of getting light marks as well. So I'm mixing up some yellow here with a touch of water, and I'm spattering sort of wet into damp there to create some light, especially through the centre. And if the paint's quite creamy and you're using a light colour, you can really get some of your light back as well if you've lost it. I'm mixing a bit of cadmium red now with the yellow to make an orangey colour, and spattering that too, getting a little bit more red, touch more water, and just finishing off with this spatter of red to give a lovely autumnal glow to my little card. As you saw, I rinsed off my brush there, and I'm mixing up a little bit more of the Prussian blue. You can use a touch of burnt sienna or even a little bit of the magenta, painting damp into damp here, some of the reflections just at the top of the waterline there, reflecting those dark bushes to finish off my painting. And here is the finished painting. It's still wet, so I'm going to wait until the salt works. And here is the painting dried, and as you can see, I'm taking off the washi tape, which is very kind to the watercolour paper, and I'm brushing off the salt there. As you can see, there's some wonderful textures. So I'm just signing and dating my card with a black waterproof drawing pen. I'm really pleased with the lovely white border there. So I really hope you enjoyed this sort of simple, easy card making tutorial on watercolour paper, and that it inspires you to maybe have a go. If you have any questions, please put those in the comments section. And if you'd like to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you'd like to learn even more about watercolour painting, why not think about joining my Patreon membership? Details about the membership can be found in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Happy painting. Bye for now.